Star Trek Generations on 4K. This is day 4 of 30 for my Star Trek review every day for 30 days. So right off the bat, I will say this is a huge upgrade. So I've only watched Star Trek Generations so far. First Contact is for tomorrow. First Contact day. So huge upgrade, but I either have a glitchy disc or the disc itself has a glitch. And no one else noticed it yet, so it might be my disc. But inside the case, it looks like this. So I've already cleaned this part off. So you can see a little bit of it on the top. If it'll focus. It doesn't want to focus. I'm going to move it to a brighter area. Okay. So inside the case has the infamous off-gassing residue is what they call it. Let's see if I can angle it so you can see that. There you go. See all that? That's like gooey stuff. So you can kind of see that. So that gets on the disc. So this is the First Contact disc. See if you can see it on there. It's hard to pick up on the phone. Anyway, my Star Trek Generations disc had a whole bunch of that stuff on it. So I wiped it off because the movie dropped sound in a few places. So I took it out and cleaned it off, and it actually kept doing it. There's a little tiny little thing that looks like it might be a scratch on the disc. Hopefully it's not defective. I've tested it on 3 players. The Panasonic UB820 and the Sony X800M2 both skip in all the same parts, and then the Sony X700 doesn't skip at all. So a little bit more on the skipping nonsense, then we'll get to my review. So at 8 minutes and 50 seconds, there's a sound drop. At 51 minutes and 43 seconds, there's like a delay and a glitch thing. And then at 57 minutes and 2 seconds, there's another very brief sound drop. So let me know if you see that in yours. Anyway, let's get to business. So here at the beginning, we get pretty much the theme of the movie laid out right here with Kirk and Scotty talking on the Enterprise B, which is the Excelsior, but with little fins added on the front, right there. That's the B. So it's funny, they've been making fun of the Excelsior for the last couple movies, and here they are on the Enterprise B, which looks just like the Excelsior, and they're like, wow, this is such a neat ship. Anyway, the theme of the movie, here we go.
Sulu, when did he find time for a family?
Well, like you always say, if something's important, you make the time. Ah, so that's why you seem so restless. Finding retirement a little lonely, are we?
You know, I'm glad you're an engineer. With tact like that, you'd make a lousy psychiatrist.
Man. The cadence of Kirk's voice is so amazing and iconic at this point. But you heard him talking about, when did Sulu find time for a family? He says, if it's important, you make time for it. And that is just time is a huge part of this movie. And then just like doing the things that are important to you in that time and savoring the time that you have. Okay, here's what the little sound drops sound like, by the way, on the either scratched or defective disc. It shouldn't have any more of the off-gassing goobery stuff on it because I've wiped all that off multiple times. So maybe it's a scratch or defective. Let me know if it does it on yours. This is 8 minutes and 50 seconds.
Into the energy distortion, Captain.
You hear that?
On screen.
So right after distortion, Captain, there's like, boop, like the sound just dropped and then came back. All right, I absolutely love this. This is one of the Kirkiest Kirk lines there ever was.
Distortions, they'll tear us apart. Risk is part of the game. You want to sit in that chair.
Helm, close to it.
Yeah, risk is part of the game. That's why we're aboard her. So, yeah, love it. That's just iconic, perfect Kirk line that just exemplifies his level of adventure and bravery. All right, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or more sentimental or what, but this opening scene where Kirk leaves the captain on the bridge and decides to be the one to go down and in the belly of the ship and fix stuff. God, I was feeling steamy-eyed during this thing. I've seen this movie a ton of times. I know what happens, but like just watching Kirk be so brave and willing to sacrifice himself, like that really got me in the feels. It was very powerful.
Scotty, keep things together till I get back.
I always do.
And he goes down there to fix stuff, and he's so brave and selfless, and puts others' lives ahead of his own. Anyway, I was feeling it on this part. There's an awesome image here, as you see the one of the little fins on the Enterprise has a big gouge taken out of it from the Nexus, and then you can see Captain Harriman, I think his name was, and then Sulu and Scott, or not Sulu, Chekhov. You see Chekhov and Scotty in there being all sad because they knew that Kirk was in there. I'm not gonna lie, I've thought about carving this battle damage into my model, so that'd look cool. Anyway, man, it's getting me steamy-eyed. So the 4K versus the Blu-ray, 4K looks incredible. This is an outstanding remaster. The things that stand out to me are that the colors look a lot more correct. And then, of course, the older Blu-ray had huge amounts of digital noise reduction. And that's where the natural film grain that's supposed to just be tingling in the picture was totally frozen. And so while you're watching that image, it looks like you're looking through just like a smear. It's like somebody's just smeared a lot of the detail on that older Blu-ray. So the 4K is definitely a step up. And I did compare the new remastered Blu-ray to the old Blu-ray, and the new remastered Blu-ray is also a huge difference over the older Blu-ray. The older Blu-ray, it's weird. In addition to having all the grain scrubbed out, which scrubbed out a lot of the detail, they also have a whole bunch of not scratches, but like dust and fragments on the film that you can see going by. So it's a weird, that 2009 Blu-ray is odd, but the remastered one looks really, really good. So that would still be an upgrade if this is one of your favorite movies. Obviously, this is subjective, what I just saw, but it is a very clear upgrade. All right, real quick note on the brightness level of the Dolby Vision. So there was a lot of people unhappy with what the 4K screenshots looked like on it's either StarTrek.com, it might be TrekNews.com, maybe even TrekMovie.com. Anyway, on one of those websites, there was a review of this box set, and they had side-by-side screenshots, and all the 4K screenshots were super dim looking, like terribly dim looking. And they did have a little caveat saying it might not display properly if your display isn't whatever. But I do want to say definitively, having watched this entire movie on 4K Dolby Vision, that the brightness is not an issue. It's just completely cinematic looking. You can see the proper detail, and it doesn't get all lost like it did in those screenshots on that website. So just if you're worried about that, I've watched the whole thing and it looks amazing. It looks really, really good. I originally saw this in theaters when it came out, and this is the best it's ever looked right here. All right, here's a super freaky part, kind of akin to in Fellowship of the Ring when Bilbo Baggins growls and reaches for the ring and he gets all scary faced. So I've seen this movie a lot, and this scene, I was always like, is that Brent Spiner like stretching his face because he's doing such an extreme emotion, or is that like a prosthetic head like Total Recall, or is it something else? And on the 4K, I think I finally got my answer. But before this crazy thing happens to Data's face, Jordy and Data have been having some awesome character moments here where Data's just gotten his emotion chip in. So he's been laughing a lot. Jordy's like, God, we gotta work. Let's go. Okay. Look at Data's face right here. It's freaky. Okay, that was a little too far. I'm gonna do it again, so you can see the beginning part. But look at his face. Tell me if you think a normal person could do this with their face.
Data?
So not gonna lie, it's kind of disturbing and terrifying. But in this higher resolution, I think I finally got my answer, and I think the answer is a little program called Power Goo, which you see in movies of the 90s, like when they have the image stretched like that. Just think of like in The Matrix when at the end of the first movie when Agent Smith is about to explode, how his head is like stretching, or just there Data, you can see his like forehead is like it's like wiggling back and forth. To me, that looks like the program Power Goo, where you could take an image and just click on it and just kind of like squish and stretch it. So now seeing this in 4K, I finally have my answer that Brent Spiner cannot do those weird things with his face, but that it was artificially stretched. So that's nice to know. I guess that's less freaky now. Okay, so in this super difficult to watch scene, for lots of different reasons. One, you could be pissed off at the writing of the scene, which I know you are, Jacob, where Picard's brother and his nephew have been killed in a fire. It actually bums me out because my very favorite episode of the entire series is called Family, which features them. But it's also hard to watch just because it's so sad. But right here, you're getting Picard basically feeling the theme of the movie as well, and beginning his journey during the movie of realizing the value of time and cherishing what you have. So right here, he's going to talk about Renee, which is his nephew, and he's basically mourning the life that he can't have and all the things he's going to miss. But it's really sad to watch right here.
Captain, it's not all right.
I can't help thinking about all the experiences that Renee is not going to have, about going to the academy, reading books and listening to music, falling in love, building a life. Well, it's not going to happen now.
Anyway, that's super sad, and it super emphasizes the point of this whole movie, which is just cherish what you have and use your time wisely because it will never come again. He then goes on to talk about regrets and things, and so you just see these people, especially these two captains, where it's like, here he is thinking the Picard family line is going to carry on through Renee, and now it's not. And then is he regretting not having a family? Maybe. And then we pretty much saw in the opening scene that Kirk is regretting not having a family, or he's lonely or in retirement. Quick note on the costume of this series, this movie. So the Deep Space Nine is going on during this, and you have the new badge right here, which is my favorite version of their comm badge. The old one looks like this. This is what the old one looks like. This is what they wore for the entire Next Generation series. So you have their season 3 through 7 uniform, but then you have the new badge. So that's like a spicy little change for this movie. But an interesting choice they make is throughout the movie, the characters, like one by one, they actually get changed into the new costume that is what they're wearing in Voyager and Deep Space Nine, which is this little beauty right here. So it's like a jacket with a zipper, and they have this turtleneck with their rank in there. And then you see O'Brien in Deep Space Nine rolling up his sleeves all the time with this version. But yeah, so you have a mixture. So everyone has the new badge, but you have a mixture of the TV show and then the newer TV show uniform. So I thought it was a really interesting way to transition the uniforms. They definitely must have thought a lot how we get this crew into the new spicier clothes. My favorite of all their uniforms are actually these ones from the next 3 movies with the gray, like bumpy top, squishy top part. That's my favorite. Those gray ones, and then the original, or not original, but the Wrath of Khan and Onward original crew uniforms that they wear at the beginning of this movie. I love those too. Look at this beautiful frame right here. It's incredible. So you have the station here in the foreground, then the Enterprise, and then this star that's just been destroyed, and this Shockwave And I love in these movies how the Shockwave is a ball. Like, it's cool in Star Wars how it's like a ring basically, but that doesn't make any sense like physically at all. But neither do lightsabers, so whatever. Different story. But I love that the shockwaves are like a ball going out in every direction. And my goodness, I loved this scene so much. Has such powerful imagery as that shockwave comes through and blows us apart. I definitely played with little ships outrunning the shockwave a lot. Let's watch it. Okay, here it goes. Love this. This is so cool. Yes. There you go. Take this picture out of context. Anyway, with that last explosion, that's one thing that the movies did. So the TV show, I always enjoyed as a kid. We watched it as a family. But the movies, I feel like they just take the cool ideas of Star Trek, but then they ramp up like the action and the special effects. And as a younger lad, that really sparked my imagination and made playing Star Trek even more fun, because they made it more like kinetic and explosive and kind of more Star Wars-y, honestly. But that is one thing I really like about the movies, is they just bring they up the action a little bit while still keeping the cool, thoughtful Star Trek ideas. Total side note, and I was going to save this for later, but it's late and it's coming out. The J.J. Abrams trilogy are better Star Wars movies than Star Wars 7, 8, and 9. Just marinate on that for a minute. I love this part. So these guys have basically put something in Jordy's visor so that they can see what he sees. And he's going to wake up in sickbay with Beverly Crusher's glamour shot.
Human females are so repulsive.
So that is Beverly Crusher's like absolute best looking glamour shot, like beautiful, best she's ever looked. She's got the smile, the hair, everything, like the perspective, like that is like an incredibly beautiful shot. And I think the people making the movie knew that. And so it just makes it so funny that these guys are like, she's so ugly. Oh, I mean, just look at that. Look at that repulsive human female. This scene's pretty touching right here, where Data's saying sorry to Jordy because he had the emotion chip in, and so he was scared during their confrontation and he couldn't just rescue Jordy, because Data, strength 12, normally can just handle anybody. So it's actually really touching to watch their relationship in this movie as well, like you see it in the series. This may be the very best part in the entire movie.
Life
Scanning for life forms.
tiny little life forms. You precious little life forms. Where are you?
And Brent Spiner is a national treasure. Okay, so that was possibly the best part in the entire movie. Actually, there's a lot of really cool parts in this. Next is the worst part in the entire movie, and it's egregious. I'm trying to decide what is more egregious, writing the killing of Renee and Robert, or the blatant reuse of the bird of prey explosion from the movie previous to this. So Star Trek VI has one of the most awesome space battles with the elusive bird of prey that's been firing while cloaked. You got the Excelsior, Enterprise, both firing on it. It explodes in the coolest movie explosion, period. You can fight me on that, or submit a movie explosion that you think is better or equal to the bird of prey exploding in Star Trek VI. So this movie uses the same explosion. Come on, you can build and blow up another model. You got a huge budget. What are you doing? Using the same explosion from the last movie? All right, well, let's watch it because it's cool. All right, well, here it is. But before they did this, they saw Jordy go to engineering and see the shield frequency, so then the bird of prey was totally wrecking the Enterprise. But they did the like sci-fi thing of like zoom and enhance that part of the image that Blade Runner does, and that this movie did earlier in Stellar Cartography, and then they did it on their ship, and it's like, man, everyone's just got the zoom and enhance. It's just like the sci-fi move. Anyway, Look at this amazing explosion. We can appreciate it for what it is. And what it is the best movie explosion of all time. But they just used it. This is Star Trek 7. They just used it in Star Trek 6. I'm bothered by that, honestly. It completely took me out of the movie. Beautiful explosion. You should definitely use it as much as you can. But it is a very specific and iconic explosion where the body explodes, the neck separates, turns sideways, explodes. I mean, I've got like the particles of this explosion memorized. And maybe normal people don't do that. Maybe normal people don't notice. I don't know. I don't qualify as one of those. What do you think of them reusing this explosion? I don't like it. I'm triggered. I need to go to my safe space. So bringing the movie full circle with the series, you've got a saucer section separating scene, which is pretty neat. More on that in a minute that I've only noticed on the 4K. So you got little kids getting evacuated. You got things like teddy bears, you know, kids holding hands. You got like a Vulcan in the background. But what is this right here? A tribble! There's a tribble in there. Look at that. That's a tribble. Look at that tribble. What a great cameo. Me and my wife were talking about scientifically how you could take an asexual tribble and make it so that it couldn't reproduce. So we were discussing that. She mentioned that Bones said that if you don't feed it, then it won't reproduce. But it's like, doesn't it have to eat? Anyway, what my wife came up with is that it's the future, and they just give it a medicine to turn that off, or give it some kind of hormone to make it not reproduce. So then you can just have a nice cuddly little tribble there, which you definitely want to save if you're gonna abandon the lower part of the ship. Okay, 2 things about the saucer separation that I've never noticed. One, so on this shot where it shows underneath, you can actually see through the Enterprise and you can see stars. Check it out. You see it? Right there, there. You can see stars through it. It's like it's see-through. Okay, and then watch once it separates. You see the little sparkly things come out. You see that right there? Little sparkly things come out. I thought that was really cool because that's like in the footage of the rocket separating on like NASA missions. When that circle thing falls off, you see all the little sparkly things going everywhere. So that's kind of become like a iconic space separation special effect is trying to copy that original NASA rocket separation image of the sparkly thing. So I never noticed that when this separates, there's a bunch of little sparkly things that shoot out. So I thought that was pretty cool. I love watching Kirk and Picard interact. It's just like a dream of the 2 best captains ever, watching them talk it out and see how different they are. You know, like his Nexus dream is this like perfect Victorian house with all these kids and everything's perfect and fancy and the kids are dressed up to the neck in dress clothes. He is at this cabin chopping wood and it's like more rustic. So it's cool to see how different they are. Here's another example of the theme here.
I was like you once, so worried about duty and obligation I couldn't see past my own uniform. And what did it get me? An empty house.
So, again, that's the theme of the whole thing. So you've got Picard's like, we got to save all these people. And he's like, nah, if I only do duty, I'm going to have an empty house like I already do. So in addition to the movie being like, oh, don't regret your life. Like you got to live every moment. At the same time, especially with him, he talks about when you're in that captain's chair, how you can actually make a difference. So the movie isn't just like, be sentimental and do emotional stuff. It's also like, no, do your duty and make a difference. So the message of the movie is pretty awesome. I love how Kirk realizes that the Nexus is not real and that he needs to get out of it. The way that he realizes it when he jumps over the creek bed in his horse, and he's like, this used to always scare me. He's like, every time except this time, because it's not real. And I love that Kirk, he just will not be satisfied with something that's inauthentic and not real. Like he lives for adventure and he goes and jumps over that thing and it does nothing for him. And he's like, all right, I'm out. And then here's a really cool quote of him talking to Picard about making a difference.
Don't let them transfer you. Don't let them do anything
takes you off the bridge of that ship because while you're there, you can make a difference.
Yeah. All right, before I play Picard basically saying the theme of the entire movie, I wanted to talk about the Nexus a little bit. So when he's in the Nexus and he's surrounded by his children, you see in the Christmas ornament the star exploding. And I was talking to my wife and I was like, okay, do you think that's the Nexus like teasing you, being like, you can actually get out of here? Because it seems like all the characters in the Nexus are like trying to pull you in. But everything that is in the Nexus is generated from your mind. Like somehow it takes the thing you want the most and gives it to you. And my wife was thinking that those little hints at the real world to try and pull you back out it's like your subconscious giving you a signal to fight its way out because your personality still wants to do what's right. So it's almost like your mind generates the false reality of the Nexus, but then there's like little things in there to wake your mind up so that you can get yourself out of there. I thought that was pretty interesting. Anyway, here is Picard. He's talking about how rather than time being something that's going to stalk you and get you, and I'll just let him say it, but I think it's beautiful and it's the whole point of the entire movie. Let's hear what he says.
I believe that time is a companion who goes with us on the journey, reminds us to cherish every moment, because they'll never come again. What we leave behind is not as important as how we've lived. After all, Navarre, we're only mortal.
Beautiful. Anyway, beautiful lesson. Awesome movie. It's not my favorite Next Generation movie. That obviously is First Contact, which is tomorrow. But yeah, the 4K upgrade was substantial, gigantic even, and the sound was improved as far as I could tell. If you want more of a technical comparison, go look at James at In Search of Physical Media. But yeah, let me know what you think, what your favorite Next Generation movie is, and thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the video or constructive criticism or not constructive criticism. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. If you appreciate this, there's also that super thanks feature down below. But I'll see you in the next one. This has been day 4 of 30 in your Star Trek reviews every day for 30 days. Thus, the tired eyes.